Are you looking to stay connected with the boys over on Beyond the Unknown? Well, check out nicotina.net. There you can join the community under Beyond the Unknown and be able to interact with both Daniel and myself and get access to exclusive content only available on the community at www.nicotina.net. Join the community and be a part of the Beyond the Unknown team today.
Okay, we're live. We're ready when you are.
Hey, guys, good to be here.
All of a sudden, I catch something black in my peripheral.
What happened next?
And then it stands directly up. And by that, I mean on two legs.
And he said that once he did that, he could not see him anymore.
That's incredible.
What I saw looked like a cross between an animal and a human.
It really just kind of shakes it to the core.
Solid black, and it looks to be like it's on.
They saw something that didn't look like human. That sounds terrifying.
Okay, welcome back to Beyond the Unknown. I'm your host today, Daniel. And today happens to be our season-ending episode 11 of Beyond the Unknown. This has been an incredible journey, enlightening journey. We've learned a ton about the Bigfoot lore, and what better way to end our season than to talk with the legendary Ron Morehead. Ron, how are you?
Oh, I'm fine. Thank you very much. I appreciate having me on.
Absolutely.
11's a good number, so there.
Yeah, it's an odd number, so it's been quite the journey for us, and it's definitely an honor to be able to speak with someone with your caliber and experience in the Bigfoot lore. Over 50 years of experience, both with books and documentaries and in the field. I'm sure many speeches and talks. So, Ron, welcome.
Well, thank you again. I appreciate being on with you. Yeah.
Awesome. So it looks like, Ron, you've been pretty busy lately, huh?
Well, I stay that way, but yeah, I got to go to another convention next weekend, and but I'm kind of tapering off on conventions. I try to do podcasts like this, with you guys, and I don't have to leave my house this way. I don't have to travel so much, and I'm in my 80s now, so some of these airports are getting a little ridiculous. Years ago, when I was spry and rich and all that, I had my own airplane.
Oh, really?
I could fly myself. I could fly myself to these things, but I don't do that anymore. I just didn't see a need for it so much. But now that all this security's gone through and all that, well, makes a difference when you're 80 something. The only good thing is I don't have to put my shoes off anymore. Just you can go right through the security line without taking your shoes off. But you got to be a couple hours early, and I don't like that either.
Yeah.
If you get layovers. Anyway, enough about that. Okay. So
it's definitely a process.
I'm glad I'm on. Mostly I love to be on these programs like this and answer questions if I can and tell people what my thoughts are after so many years. It started for me in 1971.
Wow. Yeah, no, definitely. And again, it's a huge honor to be able to speak with you. You have a new book out, Bigfoot Unveiled.
Yeah, that's my third book. And my first book was a chronicle. It was called Voices in the Wilderness, which they're doing a documentary on now. And that should be out early 25 sometime. Then my second book was A Quantum Bigfoot, which gets into the mystery behind these things, which I think is some of the things that was happening to us up there at that camp was just out of classical science's reasoning. Classical science is based on everything being Newtonian physics, which is measurable and predictable and physical or material, and that's just not what was going on up there. You couldn't figure out some of the stuff that was going on in our camp. And besides the fact that they were talking to each other and trying to talk to me at one time. And I fortunately got that recorded. And but it wasn't until 1972, I think, when we took an investigative reporter, Alan Berry, in, and he was trying to find a hoax, which we didn't know that at the time, but it's okay because he couldn't find one. He started experiencing the same thing. So he recorded them, and he really fostered the sounds at the University of Wyoming. A year-long study went on with an electrical engineer there who was very high quality, written over 100 papers, very thorough. And he said he showed a graph in the paper that he wrote, which is in a book, Man Like Monsters on Trial, published by UCB Press. And he gave that speech at a symposium in 1978, I think it was. But anyway, he wrote a book, and it was published in 1980. Yeah, and wrote in a book, and he showed where these things were outside the human range and inside the human range as far as their vocal abilities go, and underneath the human range, with their range just went all over the place. He could only get so much out of the cassette recorders we were using. But he said it represented one little bit that he checked on real close, where it represented an animal over 8 foot tall. And that kind of took it somewhere else, because it wasn't until 2008 till a cryptolinguist named Scott Nelson got a hold of it. And he said they represented a language by the human definition of language. Now, Scott Nelson, two-time graduate of the Language Institute of Military Institute in Monterey, California. He was trained to listen to codes or unknown languages and see if there was any misleadings in it or anything like that the government could use. He was Navy cryptolinguist. Only a few guys have the aptitude for that, which I say aptitude. It's good ears, really. And anyway, he came out and interviewed me and Alan Berry together. He was the investigative reporter, and he asked if he could study him. So he did, and he said there's a language there by the human definition of language, which means a morphine stream of words, like we're talking now. Now, according to Dr. Lieberman at Brown University, cognitive research scientist, says that only humans have the mechanism for language, only humans. So that kind of puts those three things, put it together for me, for there has to be a human component to these things, the ones we were dealing with. I don't think they're all the same, by the way. If I'm getting ahead of you, just stop me and ask me a question anytime you want to. I'll just rattle on for an hour.
You're doing great. You're doing great. I mean, kind of back to the recordings that you guys were able to capture. Can you talk a little bit about that experience? Because, I mean, if I'm out in the woods and I'm recording these sounds, I'm probably pretty freaked out. I mean, what was your mental state during that time? Yeah.
Let me back up to early 71 when the Johnson brothers, who'd been going to that campsite, which is 8 miles in the wilderness, 8,400 feet elevation in the Nevada mountains of California. They've been going there since 1958. And they came out with a story early that summer and said, actually late summer, that there was some kind of a monster up there that heard it, and it came around the camp, and there was a couple of them that were messing around with them. And they thought at first it was a bear. The avid hunters, this is a pretty private camp, it's pretty remote and very inaccessible, hard to get to. And they came out and told the rest of us, or told the rest of the hunters. I was not a part of the group at the time. I was just friends with them, but because I wasn't a hunter, I wasn't part of the group. But one of the guys, they all went back up and started experiencing these things coming around the evening time again. And one of the guys just got freaked out. He was just, giants like that, doing stuff like that are not supposed to exist, even though everybody's heavily armed. I mean, they weren't taking any chances. They didn't know what they were dealing with. And he ran out the next morning and said, I got to get out of here. And he came out and told the wives that what the Johnson brothers were saying, there is some kind of a monster up there. And so the guys didn't come out when they were supposed to. And Donald, he thought, well, the wife said, Donald, you got to go back up and see if they're okay. Because at that time, they didn't know if they were bait for something, or if they were eating something, or what was going on. Because, everybody started looking at something like Bigfoot then, because these things had a Bigfoot impression and made some big noises. So Donald said, well, I'll go back, but I'm not going back by myself. He asked me to go with him as a friend, and I did. And I was anxious to do it because I wanted to see what was going on too. So anyway, I read about this in my first book, Voices in the Wilderness, going to the camp and experiencing it also myself. The guys were okay. They were just packing up to get out. So anyway, I started going back as often as I get somebody to go with me, and started. Also, we was all recording with cassette recorders at the time, but just saying something doesn't mean anything. So we didn't talk to too many people about it, just our friends and family members. And then it wasn't until after Al Berry started going up, he was an investigative reporter brought there by Ivan Sanderson, who received a 23-page letter from Warren Johnson, our leader of our group. And he thought it was somebody pulling somebody's leg. So he sent it to a guy named Peter Byrne out on the West Coast in Oregon. Peter thinking the same thing. This doesn't happen to people, It's got to be an animal in the woods, just somebody else or something. But he went ahead and sent it down to Al Berry. Al Berry was an investigative reporter at the time. He came in and interviewed us, and we took him in 1972. So anyway, Al recorded them and fostered the sounds at different studies that we had done, University of Wyoming. But the sounds are unique, and they what we were dealing with up there was definitely a sentient being. We didn't know that at the time. We thought, well, everything communicates. Dolphins, whales, birds, everything communicates, but not with language like we communicate with language. Nothing does that except humans. So those three things together, Dr. Current, University of Wyoming, Scott Nelson, cryptolinguist by the Navy, and then Dr. Lieberman, Brown University, kind of put some dots together for me. These things have to have a human component. Then when the geneticists get through with the few samples they got going on here and there, they say, well, there's a human component. Well, all the academia give them a thumbs down because nothing that's on this planet is supposed to be human except us.
Right.
So they get debunked because of that. They said, no, there's a human component. That means it's contaminated. And that's where they went with it. So anyway, I think they'll all be legitimized here one of these days because there is something human about them. And so that got me reaching deeper into what are we as humans? Where do we come from? What's going on? Is it all of Darwin's theory or is there something else? Well, I reached all the way, and I was a board member in a church, and so was one of the other guys. It's all very, very honest people, very upstanding people. So I started looking in the Bible, first of all, where giants came from and what they're all about. And reached into Enoch, the book of Enoch, and that wouldn't get me even far enough then. I had to go all the way back to where language came from, took me into Mesopotamia and the Sumerian, the cuneiform text. And that's the oldest written form of language, which most all written languages, come out of that. Over 10,000, well over 10,000 clay tablets they've found that have cuneiform writings in it. And that takes us way back into the history of humans and history of other entities too, which perhaps Bigfoot was one of them. But I think they've been here longer than we have, their species. We were created by a unique, very high frequential being. So I got into that in my book, Quantum Bigfoot, because it gets into quantum theory. Where did I leave off? The cuneiform text and the what you see in Genesis, first parts of Genesis is, this was made today, that was made today, da 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 da. Well, you get into cuneiform text and all that stuff reaches into hundreds of thousands of years. So this planet has been here a lot longer than a lot of religions claim. A lot of people think it's been here, but it's really interesting when you start looking into it. And it talks about humans and giants and stuff like that, and that's all got a little bit in almost all historical books. Got stories about giants in them. So giants are not new. They're just new to this culture that we got going on now, but to a lot of people, they're not new because a lot of people are witnessing these things all over the planet. When I say planet, it's not just here in the Pacific Northwest, but also back east where I'm at now, by the way. They're also experiencing other anomalies, like the dogman, which is, Bigfoot could be here by genetic manipulation by a higher intelligent entity. Why can't something else? And that really tied into the ranch in Utah. Skip my mind for a second. They had they've seen what they call a wolf, huge, wolf.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if you get into the science of everything, how everything works, like I mentioned from West Texas A&M, and this is also Einstein's mathematical equation. It says everything from the cosmos, everything in the cosmos works through the laws of quantum physics, all the way cosmos down to the most minute entity on this planet. You think about, we're all energy. That's what happens. We're two parts to us: our biological body, and there's an ethereal body, which is our spirit, our consciousness that goes on. It can't die, according to physics. According to Einstein, it can't die. It just changes form.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then you got Dr. Paul Dirac from he was in Florida, but mainly from the UK. He got the Nobel Prize in 1933 for antimatter, which is a direct exchange from matter to energy, which supposedly all matter changes into energy at one time or another. And this was established firmly by the Hadron Collider in 2012, when the two particles collided and turned into energy. You can detect energy, but you can't see it. So that got me into a lot of the mysteries that we were having up at the camp up there, which a lot of times you hear them right there, but you wouldn't see them right there. And I've heard a lot of reports now over the years from people not being able to see them, but they hear them right next to them. And that's crazy when you just hear it, because we think of everything with our conditioned brain. You know, everything has to fall within Newtonian physics, which that's a three-dimensional environment, which we all live in.
You're right. Yeah.
We got to get out of that box. That box is really confining us to everything, feel, touch, our five senses. But it goes further than that. And if you get into quantum physics, you find out it goes outside that. We only see within certain frequencies, light's frequency, which is 430 to 770 terahertz.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you get into how much there really is going on outside of that we don't see, we just all of these other frequencies are going on that we don't see. And everything is energy, frequency, and vibration. So Einstein said, if you can find the frequency of anything, you can find the frequency of anything, you can change its matter. And there's these things are doing.
There are some studies out there where vibration or frequency can help cure certain diseases by hitting a certain sound wave. I saw something about that recently. I thought that was pretty interesting, using sound or frequency to kind of work on some of the things that are going on with you, or us or someone. I don't know. It's everything.
Well, it's everything. Frequency is everything. You find the right frequency of anything, and you're on bar with it. So it can cure. If you find the right frequency, you can cure the cancer. You can cure anything that's going on with you. Mm-hmm. And you need to keep yourself in a high vibrational frequency yourself, which is through happiness and compassion and love, and not be in a negative state of mind all the time, watching soap operas or who shot who, or focusing on the wars that's going on, or all the negativity that's going out there. It's really hard for us as humans to stay on track with positive thinking. But positive thinking, I think, is a lot to do with raising your frequency yourself. That's how we get out of our three-dimensional environment, because science says energy can't die. Well, if it hasn't learned what it's supposed to learn in this third dimension, which was taught by the masters, we're supposed to learn with love and compassion. If it hasn't learned that, it's got to learn it somewhere, either here again or somewhere else with a three-dimensional environment, because we're all destined for a higher dimension. And I think we're trying to move into that now as we expose some of these thoughts that I've gotten that you're fudging towards, I think. It's just fun stuff. And again, we just got to keep ourselves on track. But Bigfoot led me into all this, trying to figure out the mysteries that are going on with him. Because sometimes you see the trackways and they just stop. Well, how does that happen? I've heard so many reports now over the year about the trackway stopping. And then Fred Beck in 1924, when he gave his report on what happened to him in Mount St. Helen, he supposedly shot one. prior to that, they knew they were around because they saw the trackways, and they followed the trackway one time. He said it would have had to jump 166 feet to have not left another track.
Right.
You couldn't find another track.
And that's the one that's in Ape Canyon?
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. And anyway, he thought they were paranormal then. He went to his deathbed thinking they were supernatural or something. But, the paranormal, the woo, the supernatural, all that stuff is answered, I think, a lot of it by the laws of quantum physics. Because quantum physics is a science. It's not a woo thing. It's not a paranormal thing. It's just a lot of people want to put it there, but it's a legitimate, acknowledged science worldwide.
Yeah.
And a lot of physicists, I've seen the main physicist at UCLA one time and asked him what he thought about quantum physics. And he looked at me and looked me straight in the eye and said, "Nothing is real." Well, gosh, how do you get your head around that? Because we make up, if you think about it, our mind is made up of our past, right? That's all we know is what's been taught to us up in this box up here.
Yeah.
So if you've been taught that this is right, that's wrong, this is religion you should believe in, this is religion that's going to send you to hell, da 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 da. It goes on and on. This is who you should vote for, this is who you should not vote for. That's all our conditioning up here.
Mm-hmm.
But that is not where you're supposed to go by. You're supposed to go by your heart's brain. Your heart will give you a gut feeling, and that'll tell your brain up here to go right instead of left, when left seems the right way to go from your conditioning.
Yeah.
Well, where does the heart get its information? I believe it gets its information from the pineal gland, which is in the middle of our head. I think it's receptive for the spiritual world, which is out there, which we receive information from. So I teach getting coherent with your pineal gland to the heart, and let your mind be conditioned and get in coherence with your heart, because that's going to lead you in everything that's right. So there.
Wow.
There you go.
Now, how do you?
A lot to digest.
Yeah, that is quite a bit to digest. I mean, you talk a little bit about getting outside the box, when it comes to Bigfoot.
Right.
Stepping outside the box, and I think that's a hard part, because for someone like myself, I've never had an experience where anything to that where I saw Bigfoot or I felt I saw Bigfoot. But I've talked to a lot of people, including now yourself, and hearing some of these encounters, it really puts it in perspective that this is something that is different, because you talked about how there has to be some kind of human element to the Bigfoot. What's interesting is that when you hear about these encounters, they talk about how the face looks human-like. I've heard it
Right.
where they've said that it looks Native American, it looks Asian, or it looks Arab. I've heard that before as well. So running into something like that in the forest, and especially if you're a hunter, and you don't hear about hunters really shooting Bigfoot very often. I've heard a few stories like that, but it's just so human-like, and it makes them second think, like, I can't shoot this. This could be somebody. This is a being. So when you hear those things and kind of tying in some of the stuff that you're talking about, it really is one of the more fascinating subjects that I've had, the joy of talking about.
It should have been fascinating to me, for sure.
Yeah,
I get rambling. I get rambling about this quite a bit because it's so exciting. The times we're living in, the things how they're changing, the UFOs that are being seen everywhere, how many Bigfoots are being seen nowadays. But I got to say this again: they are not, in my opinion, all the same. They're not from the same maker, because I think advanced beings have genetically modified species on this planet, and they're doing it today. I mean, they got all kinds of different things going on with hybridization programs. I don't know if it's to acclimate their species to this planet or just to spy on us. I don't know, because supposedly there's ones out there you would not know the difference between them and us. They're hybrids, and supposedly there's some out there that they don't even know they're hybrids. They're just being put in a special place to do certain things, and they'll end up doing it.
Yeah,
so there's malicious ones also, in my opinion. And I think there's malevolent ones and also benevolent ones.
What
taking them
type
to Port
of
Law.
what type of entity would be doing something wrong for the human race? Like what does that mean?
Well, they don't want us to get advanced like we're getting. They don't want
Mhm.
us to. They want this planet, and the Draconians are one. If you believe in different
I've heard of that
species of
before.
aliens, yeah, and they've actually been seen some reptilian-looking bipedal creatures over in Vietnam during the Vietnam era, and also by the locals at this huge cave, Som Yang or something like that. I can't think of the name.
Close
It's a
enough.
huge cave. It's got its own environmental system in it.
Oh
It's got a
yes,
river, and
I've heard about
it's
that.
got its
Yeah,
own ecosystem.
it's huge,
Yeah,
huge.
yeah,
Yes,
yeah. Goes for miles, and it's
it does.
tall. So.
Yeah,
Mhm.
no, it has its own
So
environment and
anyway, you
features
take
or
that,
whatever.
and yeah. But I think, according to what I'm hearing, anyway, they're dwindling out because this Earth's not supposed to be taken over by negative entities. But there is a war going on in the cosmic field anyway, and we
Mhm.
don't see it because we're third dimensional entities, and they're up in the fifth and sixth. And so
You
anyway,
know,
that's
I find it fascinating when you hear about the age of the universe. Um,
mm,
Cosmologist Brian Cox said that in the I think he said the visible universe, it's 13.8 billion years old, and that's
mm,
because that's when the Big Bang happened, and they can see it. He said when it
right,
happened. Now, interesting enough, what if that isn't the first Big Bang? What if that is just another Big Bang, essentially, that we were a part of, which makes the
right.
foreseeable universe even larger and older, almost infinite in a way.
Yeah. How do you understand infancy? I mean, how do
Right.
years ago when I was a boy, I've been asked, how far is it to the end of the universe? What happens out there? Is there a wall? What's on the other side of the wall? Is there emptiness? No, there's got to be something on the other side of emptiness. Well, no one could ever answer that for me. So that kind of put me on a trail thinking there must be more going on than what we can see with our eyes or feel with our
Mhm.
fingers or smell with our nose. There's just things going on outside of this Newtonian physics parameters that we've been trained in. So I've got into, and I encourage anybody, and anybody can get their head around this. It's not that hard to get into quantum physics 101 and just see how things really work, outside. And we have to live within our measurement, our Newtonian physics world, because it's three-dimensional.
Mhm.
And until we can think out of that, we won't ever graduate. And I think you can do that through meditation when you connect your pineal gland with your heart to your brain. Like I was talking about a minute ago. You can get all that in coherence and you'll see more, and you're graduating. You're putting your personal vibrational frequency higher. And you can get out of this while you're still in this, if that makes any sense.
Mhm.
At least you can perceive things that you're not perceiving now in the third dimensional environment. It's really fun. It really is. Just got to learn to meditate and learn how to connect up. And that's what even Christ said. If you're listening to some of the masters of old, he said, I wish that all could be one with the Father as I'm one with the Father. Well, that's how you become one with the universe. One with the universe is connecting those dots and getting the coherence going between your heart and your brain, and making sure that the heart is your heart is right. It's always going to be right. It's got a bigger brain than your head does, which is hard for some people to believe too. But it's getting all the right information from the universe that you're supposed to deal with. And when you get those feelings, those gut feelings, your brain just has to learn to respond to it. And that's when you're in coherence. That's when you're outside of your own box that's been created for you.
Mhm. Yeah,
Anyway,
that
I get in. This
sounds
is Sunday for us.
yeah. No,
I preach
that's
like
cool.
this.
I mean, yeah, I mean,
Well,
we just kind of talked a little bit about, what the age of our visible universe is. And what's interesting is that
uh,
if that number is a valid number, then the human species has gotten to this point in that amount of time. If you believe that we've been altered, right? In the past, that's one path. But if you believe that potentially this is natural progression for the human race at where we're at, that's another. So if we're talking about alien species coming to this planet, what makes the alien species that much more advanced than us if we have developed to this point in that same amount of time? And
Well, well, excuse me. Go
oh,
ahead.
go ahead, Rod. No, go ahead, Rod.
Well, they've been here longer, and we, as a species, I think, have not been here all that long. We were created from the troglodytes, the caveman, I think, from the Anunnaki, which came to our planet, and that falls right in with biblical teachings too. They altered the human genome so they could make things that they wanted. They thought this was a good planet to be on. There's nothing like it anywhere in the solar system anyway. And so that's why so many of them, I think, have been coming here, and why you're seeing so many UFOs paying attention to us now, because somebody's going to push the wrong button one of these days, and there's going to be a bad war. And they want to save the planet. They don't want it to be destroyed.
Yeah,
They don't want it to be destroyed.
I would definitely say Earth is a very unique planet, and in a lot of ways, we're probably the only life that has meaning in the Milky, in the galaxy, So we're in a very unique spot.
Well, I don't know if we're the only life. I don't think we could be, but we are definitely the only life in this part of the solar system, the only biological beings anyway.
Yes.
And until one of these entities jumps out of their fifth or sixth dimension and becomes matter instead of energy, they will respond to our three-dimensional rules. If you shoot them down, they'll come down. But like Fred Beck said, he shot one and fell off that cliff, and he never could find the body. Well, how do you answer that one? They take care of their own according to lore, but then, because I think they've been here so very, very, very long, I think a lot of them, according to native lore too, they've crossbred indigenous people, and a lot of them become more human-like than others.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of them probably have the language like we recorded in the Sierras, but some of them may not have. And they may have gone recessed with that because they would still have human, because they got a human component to them. So, but who knows what's going on with their genetic makeup. I just know that the footprints on the Patterson film are way different than the footprints we've cast over the years up there in the Sierras. And I know we were dealing with something with a huge foot, and we were dealing with something that had a language. I don't know if they all speak like that with language, but they may have the recessed capability of language. And anyway, chimpanzees don't have that.
I think there recently I read an article, and they recorded a chimp saying a word recently, and I forget what the word was. I don't know if it was mama or something like that, which is a common like first word for babies, or dada. But it was actually able to say it, and if I find the article, I'll send it to you. But it was really interesting. Because like the sounds that were recorded in the Sierra Sounds, and what people have spoken to about hearing language from the Bigfoot, it's crazy. Because when you listen to that, you can actually just being a human that has language, you can hear them actually trying to dialogue with each other, and it's pretty wild that they can do that. Do you think that the Bigfoot live in large clans, or are they nomads for the most part? Like, what's your thought on that?
Oh, they're family units. Yeah, there's family units. We were dealing with it was 3 up there one night when I saw one, and that's when I recorded the second CD with the interaction I had with one of them. That's where the samurai cry come from that most people talk about.
Okay.
That's where, that's the night I saw what was making the sound, and that was a pretty exciting night. And anyway, they do live in clans, and I know we had at least 2 different clans up there, I think, over the years. Because the second clan I was dealing with up there in the 74 CD that I made the interaction sounds with. They were trying to say something to me, and they were asking me questions. I mean, from the reflection that you hear on the sounds, definitely sounds like they're asking me something. The cryptolinguists confirm that, but he says he thinks they slowed their chatter down to something they thought I could understand. So what they were slowing it down to, we've never found out. Him and I are going to speak next weekend, I guess it is. Yeah, is it 7th in Illinois? Is it Mount Vernon, Illinois? Yeah, and he's going to give a little talk on AI because it's been suggested that AI get involved in this, and I asked him about it, and he said somebody's already written him about that the chatter that they listen to has different parts of different languages. Because all AI can only tell you is what it's learned, what it's been taught. And even though it's way above what we got, it doesn't understand an unknown language if it's got nothing to compare it to. So they compare it to different languages all over the world, and several of them. Anyway, they have different attributes. I think the tracks are one of ours. Are very big tracks, and they're very splayed, wide, which I've had other people draw the same type track that they've seen, and 5 definite toes right at the top of them. And where the Patterson track is more human-like. It's got the arch in it, heavily arched. It's got the 5 toes slanted like a human toe. So I think it's a hybridized down more than by crossbreeding with indigenous people. Mm-hmm. And what we had up there did not have that so much. Oh, okay. So I'm not sure why all this going on, unless I could be on your program today and talk about it. Well, it's really interesting stuff.
It is. We talk about the different types of Sasquatch or Bigfoot species. Like just here in the States, you have the skunk ape down south, and you have your typical Bigfoot up here in the Northern California, which is where I'm at. And then you look at like Bigfoot encounters or cryptid encounters, like in Australia, where you talk about the Yowie. Where we spoke to a gentleman named Yowie Dan, and he had talked about how they had sightings on camera, which we showed us, and it was really interesting. Where they went back up to that area and measured the height, and this being was at least 10 feet tall, and how they have different type of body structures based on their environment. In Australia, potentially this Yowie is a little bit more of a slender type of creature, where over here in Northern California, they're bulky and beefy, bigger type, big chested, and maybe a little bit different in the South with the skunk ape. So what's your thoughts on why do these beings differ based on, is it just based on the environment, or is there any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's not just the environment, which could have a lot to do with it, but it's also by what created them, what messed with the genetics of a species here to create that type of body type or biological entity. So I think it's a cross between the two. A lot of them been here a lot longer than we have. In a way, yeah, that's what I think. I just got a call the other night from a guy who had a really good sighting in Florida. And he said, I couldn't say it's a skunk ape because it had to be at least 8 foot tall, and skunk apes aren't supposed to be that tall. I said, well, maybe we're standing in the mud at one time. Maybe their legs looked shorter. I don't know. Yeah. But really, these things exist all over the world, and I've been pretty much all over the world. I've been in Peru a couple of times, been into Russia, Siberia. Anyway, I've looked into this quite thoroughly, and I've decided that they can't all be of the same type. And that's I base that a lot on the alien intervention into this planet. Because when you go to the world, you see more than just what these people say about something like a Bigfoot. You see enigmas, which we can't do. And Peru is full of them. You go down there to higher country and go into Cusco and look at, you see these big boulders up there. The boulders are massive, over 100 tons, and they've been moved for miles. Place on this 13,000 foot mountain. put together like a jigsaw puzzle for a quarter of a mile, and you can't even. There's no mortar. You can't even put a hair between them. They fit
Yeah, that's
perfectly, and they're
crazy.
like a jigsaw puzzle, really, up and down. Well, it is, and you see this now stuff. You see it all over the world anymore, and it just you got this stuff like that will open up your mind. I tell you what, you see
Yeah,
remnants around Lake Titicaca, where remnants of ocean beings are in that lake. Things that shouldn't be at 13,000 feet. However, there has been a catastrophic Earth event, which just about all cultures talk about, the Great Flood deluge, 12,000 years ago.
Yeah, I think there's
what?
definitely something to some ancient technology or ancient traits that we have lost throughout the time. If you look at these structures that you're talking about, and also just in general, the pyramids and the level of precision that was used to get to their final products, I think there's just technology that was available to them, and I'm not talking like an iPad or anything like that, but maybe more of a natural, potentially a natural technology that we have not been able to recapture. And I think as a human race, we've lost connection to a lot of the things that we were able to do potentially in the past. We're talking about people that have psychic abilities. Is that something that most humans should have? But we don't know how to tap into something like that. So I think kind of tying back to what you were talking about these different dimensions that we cannot see at this point. Maybe some of that ties in.
Well, I think we can. We just have to learn how, because we can all do that stuff. I think we're made to have. We're not shortchanged as human species. We're not. But again, I don't think we've been here as a species, Homo sapiens, for as long as the aliens have been around. They've been around for eons, and they just have these other things because they are already in the higher dimensional realms that we have not learned how to access with our heart-brain coherence along with our pineal gland. It takes a lot for us to get over this hump because we're in kind of a warring species now, a warring environment, a warring negativity that we got to learn to work our way out of. And you do that through understanding how everything really works through quantum science and understanding that you can't be a victim of anything. Everything you go through on this planet is a learning experience. You're supposed to learn how to respond to it all with goodness and compassion. And if you think of yourself as a victim, well, you're never going to have that because you think you've been hurt. Well, you're learning something from it. And somewhere you needed it to learn what you need to learn to get through everything. And even the Bible says God is love. Well, okay, there you are. Got to get with the universal consciousness, which is love. And I talk like this on Sunday sometimes, so you have to forgive me.
It's all good.
But I gotta say
following
this
you.
stuff because
Yeah.
I believe it with whole heart. I'm in the 80s now. I don't really care what people. I do care because I want people to believe that I think I'm on the right track here with this connection that I've made. And if you get into the study of the cuneiform texts and parallel with what you learned from the biblical texts and several other texts, because most all texts have their core of originated from cuneiform writings, oldest known writing 3400 BC, and just about all religions, including the Hebrew writings, come out of that, which was adopted by the Catholic Church, and they've created the biblical narrative that we're reading now. And a lot of people base their lives on that narrative, and that's okay, but it's not complete, and it's been altered a little bit because everything has to go through a human's brain at one time or another to be written down. And even though King James had 36 scribes working on those in 1611, well, they all had their brains, that they had to work with.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Anyway, I get carried away with this stuff because it's so darn interesting to me.
No, that's great. Maybe let's talk a little bit about some Bigfoot encounters. And I believe in your past, and I'm not sure if you still do, but do you still like follow up with encounters that people report to you?
I follow with my advice, and I don't go. Well, I shouldn't say that. Last year, I went out to the land between the lakes where they claim they've been seeing the dogman out there and Bigfoot. It's a huge, big park, and I go there as an invitation and spoke down there, and also I'll probably be going back with them because they have a place. Well, one guy, Martin Groves, good friend of him, and Daryl Denton, they're good men, and they've kind of adopted me into their little circle of brotherhood. So I go out with them, and Martin Groves was a sheriff on the sheriff's department for 30 years, retired. He inspected that, or he went through the line of between the lakes, LBL they call it, and he ran face to face with a dog man, and you can't deny his report. I mean, he's just so incredible. He's seen it. We went to that spot, and he just started shaking. But it's just incredible what this stuff can do to people. Face to face with a dog man.
Face to face.
Huge. Face to face. Yeah. And it just scared, it's scary. However, like I told him, and like I told Daryl, and like I talk about with everybody, is things you don't understand will play on your fear, especially these entities like that. If you go out with fear in your heart or fear in your mind, you're probably going to draw in what you're thinking about. You do draw in what you concentrate on, what you think about. So they can appear because of your fear. That rhymes. I didn't have thought of that. But anyway, you can't live. Well, you can only live in the now. You can't live yesterday, because yesterday is what you've got in your head. That's all you've got, is what you've been trained to think about. Unless you expand out of that. And expand out of that means having an open mind, as in parachute. The only way it opens the only way it works if it opens. So you can't live in tomorrow because it don't exist. So you can't live in yesterday because it doesn't exist anymore. You have to live in the now, and you have to have your mind open to accept what's going on, because a lot of it will be made up with your own brain. That's the metric world they talk about, which science talks about how nothing's real. Well, do we make up our future? In a way we do. Yeah, I think so. But there's just more going on. But I'm thankful to the Bigfoot beings, because we encountered them up there. We had some mysteries around them. One time we thought our camp was being tore apart. I was inside the shelter. And you look out there later and nothing's changed. I mean, the barrels are still where we had them cabled to the trees. Nothing's changed. Well, how do you explain that? At those days, we were looking for the ape in the woods, like so many researchers are now. They're looking for the ape in the woods. They think it's just, flesh and blood only. Well, here's a red alert for them. Nothing is just flesh and blood only. It's got life. It's got something to it besides flesh and blood. Mm-hmm. And life is different. I mean, biological life will die. Ethereal life, which is spirit, does not die. I mentioned that before, but it's so important to realize that that's where religions go with everything. You die, you're going to go to heaven, or maybe someplace else. Whereas, actually, the Catholic Church introduced that into the religious field in 1100 something. So I got to say what I think, and that's all I can say at this age of my life, because who knows how much longer this body's going to keep walking around, But I do get out in the field occasionally, but it's mostly on the East Coast now. I've been out on the West Coast a time or two, but I haven't been up to the camp, our Sierra camp, since 2018, when I went up with David Paulides on a filming thing. He wanted to film me around the camp, and I've known him for years. Very honorable person. So we all went up there, him and his cameraman and Scott Nelson, the linguist, and went up there and hung around the camp, and he filmed it all. And he produced it on a CD, Missing 401, The Hunted. I'm about 15 minutes in that. I've got a part in that for about 15 minutes is his introduction or his interview with me at the camp around the fire and all. That was fun, but that's the last time I've been up there. And I can still ride a horse. I know I can do those things. I just, why? The mystery. Well, I've been invited so many times to go back up there, but I just don't. And anyway, it's it's still there. Even
it sounds like quite the journey.
It's quite a journey, and it's very imposing. And it's just, once you get there, it's like heaven, but it's nice. But it has been burnt. When we were up there in 2018, California was on fire. I mean, so many wildfires, and it was heading our way. And we was hoping the mule team would get back in time to haul us out of there because we had like 3 mules hauling our supplies in. You had to take tents in and all that stuff because the shelters kind of collapsed or taken down now since they got old. Been there for so many, many years. So we're sleeping outside in tents. We just hoping they came in after us before the fire caught up to us, and they did. So we didn't burn up. People ask me, "You think Bigfoot's still up there?" Well, I don't know. If they go underground, which I think a lot of them do now, they go into cave systems. A lot of them may be interdimensional, where they can cross over between a third dimensional environment into the fifth or sixth. And anyway, they're still around. People are still seeing them and all that. But the camp area is not the same, but the campsite is still there.
Yeah.
So I don't know, and I don't care to go up there and find out because what did happen in 2016 when I was up there 2 years before the. Can we keep talking?
Yeah.
2016, we saw this light anomaly go slowly creeping by our tent about 40 feet away. And what do you do with that? It's like a elongated light, 3-4 foot long, just working its way through the forest. What do you do with that? It's a form of energy because everything is energy, frequency, and vibration. And a lot of reports over the years too of people seeing Bigfoot turn into a ball of light, and just go out. Well, if they can manifest themselves or change their matter into energy, they can do just that. It also gives an answer to these people that see trackways disappear. I've had that happen to me. I followed a trackway. My daughter had a sighting that morning. We found the trackway. It was really deep. We couldn't even make an imprint in it. It was so heavy, whatever it was. But all of a sudden, it just stopped, and it didn't go on. I looked up in the trees. I looked at brush. I looked at boulders. I looked where could it have jumped from here. It didn't. It just stopped. Well, that threw a mystery into me because how do other people say this stuff? But how does that happen? It happens through density because if they change their matter into energy, their density will change and they won't leave a track anymore. So there you are. All those people that see a trackway disappear.
And that's interesting because that means that Bigfoot has the ability to make some pretty intelligent decisions on what it wants to do when it wants to do it.
Right.
I've heard an encounter where there was 2 guys hiking out in the woods, and I think it was Alabama or Arkansas, and they had a rock thrown at them. And when they turned around, they didn't see anything. Another rock came at them shortly after, and the guy in the front turned around and stared at where the rock came from, and he saw Bigfoot out there. And he said that it scared him. The Bigfoot turned around and walked away, and he said he ran up there as fast as he could, which is a little bit opposite than a lot of people would do, which is run away. But when he ran up there, he said he was up there, within 30 seconds. And when he got there, it was literally gone. And he said he felt static in the air.
Yeah, we're all electrical beings, But the thing is, when they throw rocks, which we've had that happen different places, but not in Sierra. Well, once in Sierra Camp when one of the guys are going in a wrong way. I think it's where they have their young. They don't want you to go that way. They won't hit you. They could pop you right in the head if they wanted to with a rock. Pretty sure they're pretty good at that. But we had this rock thrown by us up by Lake Amador, and way back in the woods up there where these miners had been claiming they saw these things and something's messing with them up there. So flew up there in my plane. We landed there, and they picked us up and took us back in the woods where there was a long, long dirt road. And so this is where things have been happening. And we around the fire that night, and they're talking. This rock went whizzing by us. I mean, like an arrow, just like that, hit this tree.
Wow.
And wow, nothing could throw something that fast. It had to be catapulted by something, and nobody was around up there except us. And and they left. They said, we don't spend the night up here anymore. We're not going to stay around this stuff.
Oh, that was it, huh?
How very nice. For them, yeah. But we
Yeah.
stayed there because Al Berry had driven there. I flew up there and met him at the airport, and we drove separately. So we had our vehicle there, and we stayed there that night. And we found the rock the next morning, and where it had been hit on, where the tree it hit the tree. So that was unique. And they do throw rocks, but again, I don't think they'd want to hurt you. I mean, they did, they could. I mean, they can break an elk's neck if they want to.
Oh,
These things are huge, they're strong, and they're not supposed to interfere. Nothing is really supposed to interfere with our dominance on this planet. We have dominion here because we're a unique race of beings, the human species is. And they're not supposed to interfere unless they can talk to your inner mind, the one that you sense things with, that we've been talking about. If they get on the frequency that you're on, they'll tell you something. That's where these people come up with this mind speak stuff, because
I heard about that. Yeah.
they'll tell you that. And I've never experienced that I know of. But then again, maybe I've thought this through quite a bit over the 50 years I've been doing this. And maybe that's what they were trying to do in 74 when I was trying to communicate with them. But I was mimicking them, still thinking of an ape out there in the woods, didn't realize how important language was. And I wondered if because they couldn't mind speak to me because I'm a little thick up here, too analytical. And
you weren't quite outside the box just yet.
Well, I wasn't. You're right. I wasn't. And but I had to analyze everything, and that's where women's intuition comes in, because they can sense things we don't sense because they're not as analytical as we are. Most of them. I shouldn't say that about all women, but anyway, we as a species have the ability to. For telekinesis, we have the ability for telepathy. We have those abilities. We just have not evolved into them enough. I think Bigfoot has, because he was created on a little different level than us. And a lot of them have been diluted down from crossbreeding. So they're not as human as other ones are. So whatever we were dealing with up there, I think was pretty unique. I did see a UFO up there once, which was definite. I saw it coming down from the sky slowly. Got lost it behind the trees, and that's the last I found of it, or last I saw it. This is the same time Bigfoot stuff was happening, which happened from 1971 through 1976 for us up there. And one time I heard a big tuning fork sound outside. While we was outside, you hear this big humming sound up above you, but you can't find the source of it. And who knows? Now that I know more about UFOs, it might have been a UFO cloaked up there. These things can cloak because the word for cloak, they just go out of your 3D perception. Third dimension perception is, like I say, 430, 770 terahertz. That's all we can see, but all these other frequencies are out there. And everything at the most minute level, energy, frequency, and vibration. And a lot of science going towards it, and a lot of theoretical physicists are working on that now. Sound healing and vibrational healing, and you find the right frequency of anything, you change its matter.
Yeah.
That's how I think miracles in the old are done.
I think there's a lot of technology that the U.S. government is using, kind of that they've been developing from potentially sourcing it from alien life. And you're starting to see more of it. I think the U.S. government came out, I forget the gentleman's name, but he had a hearing in front of Congress and talked about some of these sightings, had the pilots up there about the TikTok, so there, and just these craft are able to do things that we as humans in our current condition don't think it should be able to do. And
we can't with our current technology. Yeah.
Right.
We have the technology, I think, in the underground. I think we know about this stuff. We've shot down these things starting from 1947 on, but we don't shoot them down anymore because they've got wise to us on that. And they know we're a warring species. We want to shoot them because so we can learn. And
Yeah.
we got these things. We're back engineering under the underground in Nevada.
Yeah.
This is going on, and a lot of whistleblowers are coming forward now. Dr. Stephen Greer, who is doing the whistleblowing
That's it. Yes.
stuff, trying to get the connection going with Congress, so they'll open it up for us. But once they open it up, it's going to screw the whole world economy up. I mean, if you knew how to transport things without a truck, you know how to move things around and how to heal people without the big pharma being involved. A lot of people ain't gonna like that. They don't like it. That's why it's kept secret so much. And it takes away the profits from the big pharma, from a lot of oil industry and all that are going to lose, because we don't have to have things the way we're dealing with it now. Last 100 years, we just lost. Since Tesla died, Tesla was my hero. He's got a lot of stuff. He had a lot of inventions that the government took.
Really?
And they've also back engineered from UFOs down. Anyway.
Yeah.
I can
No.
go on and on, huh?
Yeah. So a couple things I just want to touch on, and you talked a little bit about it. You know, your past. Well, you go and check out encounters. People come to you with certain encounters, and you used to do that. You know, on the boots kind of review with them. Did you get a chance to talk with? And I don't know the gentleman's name, but it's the 911 Bigfoot encounter that you hear a lot about replayed, where the guy is staring at a Bigfoot in his front yard and he's on the phone with dispatch.
Yeah, I recorded that
Oh, you recorded that
from
Okay.
dispatch.
Oh, you did. Okay.
Yeah, I
So
took it from
how was it?
dispatch, and well, it was a guy who had saw one that night when it was 1 o'clock in the morning, when he was down in his garage, which has the windows in the door, and his sensor light came on. He saw one out there at the end of his car. The car was outside, and he called the sheriff. But prior to that, 2 weeks prior to that, something had killed one of his dogs, and a big German Shepherd. And he showed us where he went out and found his dog, and it had been thrown 35 feet. Heard this big squeal, pop, and just thing hurled him 35 feet over this fence. And anyway, he had buried it. But 2 weeks later is when he had this sighting out there, and he said, "Something's going on out here. You need to get somebody out here right now." And then they start questioning him, and I edited it a little bit for the CD that I put. I put it on volume 2 of my Bigfoot sounds, Bigfoot recordings. Yeah, and yeah, it's been used, plagiarized all over the place. I don't care.
Oh, yeah.
I let these sounds out to anybody who wants to hear them. But really, I don't have anything to prove. I don't have any money to gain from it. You know, too much. I sell a few of my books, but they're very reasonable, so people can read on this. I really want my word to get out, because I think it makes a lot of sense. It connects a lot of the dots, and I've been doing this longer than most people.
No, that's crazy, because you know that there's been encounters that I started listening to, you know, over the past, you know, year, and that's what kind of helped me, you know, and my brother kind of get back into this, because we've always been interested in cryptids or the Bigfoot lore. We just kind of kept it to ourselves, you know, and you know, when you start listening to a lot of the encounters, it kind of sparks that passion back up. And you know, that's kind of how we started getting back into this, is just started listening to a lot of the encounters, and really the encounters that are descriptive. The descriptive encounters are the ones that I gravitate towards, because it helps put the visual in my mind, and that's where I can connect to it better, you know. So when I listen to encounters, you know, just as much detail as possible is awesome, because then I can really try to visualize and conceptualize what I am listening to. And that's how I'm able to connect to these encounters and, you know, different things that goes on. One of the interesting encounters that I had listened to, that I sent my brother at the time, was it was on Sasquatch Chronicles, and I forget the episode number, but it's the one with the British lady named Claire. And when
episode 515, I actually interviewed her myself too.
Can you talk about that interview a little bit, Ron?
Well, it's pretty much is on 515, but I got into a little more depth with her and what she went through when that happened. But she drew me some pictures and said, by the way, she's a linguist.
Hmm.
She knows 7 different languages and
Oh,
very
wow.
credible lady. And she's sitting on these rocks out there waiting to take a picture of the sunset when these things kind of walking by the beach and just frightened her. She had Bigfoot not even in her brain. She wasn't thinking about it at all.
Right.
She didn't even know about it. And she see these things. I got to get a picture of this because the male was out in the water picking up seaweed and throwing it back to 2 females.
Mhm.
And they were doing something with it, and she didn't know what, but she thought she'd take a picture. She got to take a picture of this. She pulls the lens cover off, and she's so shaken. She was really shaking. She said she dropped the lens cover on the rocks. The big male heard it. He turned around, screamed at her, and started coming towards her, and the 2 females stopped him. And she said if they hadn't stopped him, she felt like she had been killed. I don't think she would have, but she fainted about that time. And somehow she ended up by her car. She felt like she was drugged up there, carried up there one. And, so she was very, very credible. And she said when it screamed, its neck swelled out. In other words, it's got
Really?
these
Plans?
like a howler monkey has.
Okay.
Yeah, these yeah. But they can portray, because some of these recordings we got, it sounds like they're standing there holding the microphone, and they're not.
Yeah.
Sometimes you can see the microphone and they're not holding it unless they're close. I don't know, but
Yeah.
they got these glands under there that they can squeeze, and it gets that sound protrudes way out there. Amplitude just goes way up. And believe me, they got an amplitude that could jar you when you hear it. And it was jarring her. And she says it wasn't for the female there that stopped him. She feels like she would have, she just thought she was going to die. Big things started coming towards her. She drew me some pictures, and I got them. Showed where his neck swelled out. She could actually see the skin because it was wet. And she could see that. And also had a spot on his tongue, which she's not sure what that was all about. But she got
like
pretty close to him that night.
Yeah, that was one of the that was one of the more crazy.
She told me what she went through when she got back to the hotel trying to report this thing. And the police came, gave a report. Then all of a sudden a guy in plain clothes came and he says, "You seen a bear. You didn't see this on our beach." Because this is old beaches of California there by Monterey.
Yeah. Yes.
And my gosh, you don't want to scare the people away. That's why you don't hear much about this in some of these forests, because they don't want to scare their public away. There's been a lot of sightings around Yosemite, and our camp is between Yosemite and Tahoe, the Sierra camp. There's been a lot of sightings in there, and yet people are turn up missing and stuff like that, and trying to get to the bottom of it. David Pilates, that's how it got started. He was trying to get to the bottom of some of those sightings and some of those missing people, and he just ran across a stumbling block, and but that got him on this track, which I'm sure glad he did. Him and I are good friends now, and
Nice.
I trust him with everything.
We interviewed a gentleman by the name of Sergio, and I believe the Clarice incident was in 1989. Is that correct, Ron?
Which incident?
The Claire's encounter.
Oh, Claire. Maybe 87. I'm not sure. 89,
Okay.
somewhere right in there. Yeah.
Somewhere around there. So Sergio was talking to us, and back in 1989, him and a friend went hiking up to some ponds that were coastal ponds in that area. And they ran into a Bigfoot standing by a service shed on the way to these ponds. And granted, this is at night when him and his friend decided to do this back in 1989. So I found it interesting how he had this encounter in that same area vicinity as potentially Claire did in that same year. And I thought it was 89, but we could be off by a year here. So, and his encounter was nothing like Claire's encounter. This encounter was more, it was actually very interesting. The Bigfoot walked across the road. They had seen it from a distance. They stopped walking. The being crossed the road and went up on the hillside to their left, and they can hear it up there walking around. And they decided to walk backwards out of that area. And as they were walking, they were being trailed by the Bigfoot on the hillside. Once they heard it stop trailing them, they turned around and ran as fast as they could back to their vehicle. And Sergio was talking about how when they got back to their car, they said, we got to go back. And his friend's like, no, we're not going to go back right now. And he's like, let's go park and sleep, and let's go back in the morning. So they go back in the morning, and they're able to measure the height of the shed. The shed was just over 7 feet tall, and this was all of 7 feet, this being. And when they got across the ponds, he said they found a nest site there. And it was almost like a bunch of branches laid out and grass and kind of a dome around the area. And when he went inside, he stuck his head in there. That's when he smelled like it smelled like garbage or like just rotting stuff. And when he smelled that, him and his friends left. They figured we need to leave because this might still be around here. So it was a really interesting encounter because it kind of ties into the same area that Claire had that incredible encounter. So I just kind of wanted to share that with you.
Thank you. Interesting. A lot goes on along the Pacific Northwest coast, all the way from Santa Cruz area or south of that, all the way up into Washington, Canada, and into Alaska, actually.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Well, good. Well, Ron, I don't want to keep you on too much longer. I know that you got some plans today. So I just want to say thank you so much, Ron Morehead, for giving us some time. It's been an honor speaking with you. You are a legend in the Bigfoot lore. You are the Babe Ruth of Bigfoot lore. So it's a huge honor to speak with you.
Well, thank you. It's been my pleasure to be with you. My website, by the way, if anybody want to get a hold of my stuff, is ronmorehead.com. And that leads you to, you can download any of my books or my CDs, either any of them, or you can order the hard copy through Amazon with that. So thanks again for having me. And we'll talk.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Ron. I appreciate everything. And I've been to the website. It's a very intuitive website, easy to navigate. For everyone that's watching, go there, check it out. You can hear some of the Sierra sounds on there. You can look at what Ron has for you, and it's all incredible stuff. So again, thank you, Ron, so much.
My last word, know how special you are as a human being to have the experiences that you're having on this planet, because that's what's going to get you off this planet someday, or you're going to stay here, one or the other. We're incredible species made by the high frequential beings. And so there. That's all I got to say. Know how special you are.
And those are all great messages. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Daniel.
All right. So I'll let my brother know the recording is over. And again, man, thank you, Ron. This was really enlightening, and it was a really big honor to speak with you, man. I feel sorry for my brother who wasn't able to make it. So, all righty.
That's okay. I had fun with you.
Good.
How about having fun, living life well, enjoying life?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Take
All
care.
right. Well, thanks a lot, Ron. Take care.
If you have a story that you would like to share with us on our podcast, please reach out to us at beyondxunknown@gmail.com. Paranormal, unexplained, UFO, or Bigfoot, reach out to us and share your story.
Ready to generate more leads from your website, Google, and your social channels without having to spend money on ads? Our platform provides you with an easy-to-use communication stream that sucks in free leads from your website, Google, Facebook, and Instagram, enabling you to reply and convert them into customers from your computer or from our mobile app. We'll even turn your inbound calls into text message conversations, so you'll never miss another lead again. Once you've converted a satisfied customer, you can shoot them a Google review request with a click of a button, which will explode your positive reviews and increase your position in search engines. The system will also pull new reviews from Google and Facebook right into your conversation stream, where you can read and reply. Jumpstart your business by getting started today.